What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Loot Bros /2236 podcast. So what we're doing with this very special episode is Loot Bros Patreon is going to get early access as soon as we're done recording. I am whipping the edit together, and then Loot Bros patrons will get this. And then in the next few days, this will go live on the 2236 feed. So I'm Residentdarrell, obviously, and this week I've got my good friend Lucia. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. Ready to? Are we spoiling what we're talking about? Or
Yes.
Good.
So we're gonna talk the new Resident Evil film. All right, the Welcome to Raccoon City, and what we're gonna do is we're just gonna kind of go into it with general thoughts, and then we'll ease our way into spoilers. Then we'll go full spoiler territory. But I know it's fresh, it's hot. You know, it just came out a few days ago, so people are going to want to see this movie. So we'll save the spoilers for the end, but that might be 5 minutes in, that might be 50 minutes, who knows? So, but since Loot Bros are getting access to this, it is only right that I start off the episode with a toast, as per usual. So this week's toast goes to you, Lucia. Thank you for joining me. This toast goes to a new Resident Evil film, good, bad, or ugly. You know, we got it.
It happened.
So, it did. It definitely happened. And a special shout out to our Patreon producers. Oh, this thing is ice cold.
I know. I have mine prepared this time in the fridge, and I was like, yeah, because I actually found, because I don't ingest any like sugar, processed sugar, so I actually found the major melon flavored Mountain Dew as a Mountain Dew Zero Sugar.
Oh,
and I was like, success.
Thank you,
Walmart, not sponsored.
Not yet. Anyway,
No.
So. All right, so Lucia, you are a seasoned Resident Evil fan and veteran of the series. I have dabbled over the years,
Slightly, just a bit.
Slightly
Dip your
dabbled.
toes in.
You know, and I got to say, like, I'm just going to kind of back it up before we even get into general impressions. The fact that this movie exists is pretty cool because it's not very often that you have a successful, you know, movie franchise like we got with the original Resident Evil movies, and then they immediately get rebooted to start over in favor of something that kind of supposed to follow the source material a little better.
Yeah, it didn't. I think the original franchise, it was over $1 billion for that franchise. It was
absolutely,
it was huge, and I mean, I'm not shocked because from a Resident Evil fan standpoint, we've been asking for a reboot since like the third movie.
Yes.
And I think we got 7 total.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, if you think about it, we got like 6 or 7 live action movies. We've gotten multiple CGI films.
Yeah.
And then now we've got the Netflix CGI film series, because it's not quite a movie. It's not quite.
Yeah, it's like a mini series.
Yeah. And then there is Netflix is producing a live action Resident Evil series as well. So
I'm not even. That's a whole nother.
Yeah, that's
a whole nother conversation to have. I was just like,
Yeah. When they showed their cast, I was like, okay.
I didn't even look at the photo when I heard the plot point for it. I was like, how are they going to set this in high school with Wesker's kids in Raccoon City? I'm like, what?
And the Wesker that their main Wesker is not Wesker that we know. It's just a Wesker. So like,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a thing. So, but here we are. Welcome to Raccoon City. It exists. It came out. I was, I don't want to say I was very excited because I'll be honest, I've been let down so much with video game movies that I knew to keep my expectations in check. But the trailer came out and it looked a little low budget, which I'm fine with. And it came out and it was very much like, an Easter egg fest.
Oh yeah. 100%.
And you're going to hear me say that a lot because they definitely knew the source material. And it was very interesting to see the choices that they made in the trailer. And in the trailer, there were callbacks to Resident Evil 1, the game, Resident Evil 2, and there was even a Code Veronica Easter egg. And that was pretty exciting. I guess what were your initial thoughts of the film?
Well, I was hyped for it from the trailers and the set photos. And when I saw that there was like Resident Evil 1 and 2 shown, I was like, oh, is it going to be set like in the time frame of Resident Evil 2? But we get flashbacks from like maybe Claire finds like a video log or something. And then it would be like a flashback to like Chris and all them. So I was already hyped because I was like, the possibilities. Like I went in like blind, no spoilers other than the trailer and a few like set pieces that I couldn't avoid. I was just like, let me just watch this. But the Easter eggs were probably one of the few things I enjoyed. Other than the set pieces looked great, and I think 90% of the casting was right, but the writing and everything else was just, I don't know. It was a long for a movie that's under 2 hours. It was a long movie.
I actually agree with that. That's definitely. So I guess my initial thoughts before I get ahead of myself is I went in low expectations because I know that they've fouled this up before, but I'm like, man, they're sticking to the source material. They're rebooting it. They picked like a bunch of really not high-end actors and actresses. Like it's not like they broke the bank with their cast. And I'm a fan of Robbie and Stephen Amell, right? So I was Robbie Amell's pretty good. I was like playing a young Chris Redfield. I can see that. And I don't know anything about the chick that was playing Jill, but she had a good look to her. I was digging it. The chick that played Claire was a little grizzled. I guess a little too hard.
She came off like very bitter.
Yeah. Definitely very stoic, very not the Claire Redfield from Resident Evil 2, the game that was like, I'm looking for my brother and I will take care of you, Sherry, kind of like mother warm figure. But overall, just my initial impressions from the trailer leading into the movie was, I'm trying not to be hyped, but like there's a lot there to enjoy. And then I went in, I watched the movie, and I walked out going, I don't know that I like that. I texted my brother, and I said it was an Easter egg fest, and they were so into the source material they forgot to write a good movie. That's the
most accurate statement, and I feel like they should put that on the back of the Blu-ray as a quote. Like how they put the reviews on the poster. That was one of those good ones. They never put middle of the road. It's like great use of source material, Easter eggs. Next time, write a script to go with it.
Yeah, because like the movie, like, and don't get me wrong, like you can. And this is what's been hard for me because I went into it like as blackout as I could possibly get, minus the original trailer and some set photos that I saw. But like I really wanted to love it because they would do so many things where I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. Oh my God, that's so cool. Oh man, that's so cool. And then the movie would be happening and I'm like, what are they? Why would they do that? Why would they say that? Like, why would they portray this character that way? And I was just like, the more excited I would get, the more I would scratch my head. Like, why? Asking myself why.
It's like, that's cool, but why was that a companion to it? Why did that happen?
Yeah. So I guess before we get into like story and plot, let's just kind of focus a little more on the characters because they really, again, they knew their source material. They landed Chris Redfield, Claire Redfield, Jill Valentine. All right. They put a Leon Kennedy in there. You had a Wesker. They had Richard. They had, we're talking like, old stars characters from RE1. They had Chief Irons in there. That was cool. William Birkin. They didn't, and they had, I guess, William's wife Annette, but she didn't really play like a role in it like she would in the game franchise. But she was there. Sherry was there. And I really expected, like you were saying, it to take place during Resident Evil 2 and then flashbacks to Resident Evil 1. I almost expected them to tell both stories at the same time, like because you had Chris and his team kind of run out to the Arclay Mountains and to find the mansion, and then you had like Claire and her thing going on. And what was interesting is how they retold the way that the truck driver was introduced.
Yeah, that was actually pretty cool.
It was cool, but like the writing, it was his writing especially was so bad because he probably said 30 words, 40 words, and they were like 90% were the F word. It was just like
it was either he was swearing or like low key hitting on / like sexually harassing Claire.
Yeah. And they did so much too, because they were like, they had him munching on the burger all nasty and sloppy, and like dog. The remake. Yeah, and they had the dog in there, but like it was cool the way that they framed and told some of those stories. But what was interesting to me was just when they would make the subtle changes to the characters or to how they're introduced. Like it was like, why do it that way?
I know, like, and it started off good. Like right when I saw the truck and the scene when the truck popped up, I was like, oh, we're already starting with the truck driver. I was like, okay, thank you for wasting the first like 18 minutes on this flashback I don't care about. But I do enjoy this truck driver scene. They grabbed the burger. I was like, it was almost like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme. I wanted to point at the screen, like, hey, I know that reference.
Yeah,
This is good. And then it's like downhill a bit, and then it's like, oh, introducing 2 more characters. I'm like, yay! And then it's like, nope.
It was weird because, like, the way that they introduced William Birkin in the very beginning. And again, trying to tiptoe around spoilers, they established a relationship with him that was not established in the game. And I thought that was interesting and a decent way of doing things. But it seemed completely unnecessary.
It was unnecessary because it didn't affect the plot at all or the character. Like, like if they do flashbacks and show like relationship people, like it would lead to like maybe a personality change or some sort of character growth or something to push along the story. It just kind of felt like it was just put there as like a filler.
Right. 100%.
And the guy who's casted as Burger, like he was great. I like him as an actor because he was
he's good.
He was in Legend of Chun-Li as Bison. He's been in a few other things, and I was like, I like him as an actor. So I was like kind of excited because I was like, he could actually be a good William. Like I could see that. But the writing ruined him so much.
I agree. I totally agree. And that was what was, again, frustrating. So, but William Birkin is there. Parts of his character were good. And again, now this isn't necessarily a spoiler, but his G-Virus transformation was pretty good. And that was pretty spot on to the game, especially like our Resident Evil 2 remake. And I do believe that a lot of the character development and the source material that they based their characters on was a Resident Evil 2 remake, not near as much Resident Evil 2 OG.
Yeah, I could see that because, well, one, I haven't played the OG Resident Evil 2 in a long time, but I did play the remake for 2 and 3 within earlier this year. So yeah, it's definitely based more on probably on 2 remake.
Yeah, I definitely. The more I thought about it too, the more I watched it, I was like, yeah. I mean, because they like we'll just kind of move into Leon's character. Yeah, is right because this is by far the one they got the most wrong. Like they leaned into the rookie cop thing so hard that they made him a total doofus.
He just got shit on so much.
it was terrible. It was just like And in my opinion, that there's a couple things that if they would have done differently, the whole movie would have sat different in my mind. And like Leon's character is the main one. It's the biggest offender because it's like they did so many doofy things with him, and they made him such a they even gave him comedy relief.
That's all he was. Like, I feel because like I'm not the biggest fan of Leon from the games. I think he's kind of like oversaturated. I didn't like Resident Evil 4, so like when they first were kind of like making jokes towards him in the in the first real time we see him, I was like, haha, screw you, Leon. And then I was like, maybe the director and the writer were just tired of playing Resident Evil games that have Leon in it, and they're just like, give me a game with Barry. And then they're like, you can't have Barry in the movie. It's like, fine, look what we do to Leon then, because it felt like the writers had a grudge against a fictional character with the way he was portrayed in this movie.
Yeah, and what a huge omission in the characters. They didn't use Barry.
They used Jill Valentine either.
Well, yeah, they did. They used.
Oh, not Jill. I meant Rebecca Chambers.
Yeah, they didn't use Rebecca.
Yeah, as I was just like, no Barry, like no Rebecca, because I feel like if you're gonna have someone who's a rookie and kind of just not the butt of the jokes, but like the inexperienced one who's kind of like ignorant to what's going on around him, that's a good role to have, like Rebecca Chambers. Because in the novelization of the games, which I still think are the best like non-game form of media to ingest anything Resident Evil, and not the manga, the other ones, the SD Perry ones for anyone listening, like the Caliban Cove one, isn't that like the Rebecca Chambers stories that they were telling were so good and fleshed out that character, and even Barry, and I was like, yeah, and I was like, how do you leave those two characters? Because even from a long-term standpoint, thinking like if it was a franchise with more films, they would be needed. You can't introduce them later on, especially if you want to use a source material.
Yeah, and so again, another omission. Not that they needed him, but Billy Cohen. So whenever they have that one scene where they're in the Arclay Mountains and that vehicle's flipped over, I was like, oh man, they're using Billy. Right. And they didn't.
No Billy.
And that was another way of retelling what happened to Bravo Team, which I thought was a very interesting choice. It's like, why would you not like? I don't understand the logic behind like not telling the story the same way. Like, what did you gain by sending a couple cops? I mean, I guess it made more sense for it to be. I guess now that I'm saying it out loud, like maybe it makes more sense just a couple cops going on a patrol in their car together versus a helicopter being down.
Yeah, I could see why they would, but at the same time, my whole thing was like they didn't explain a lot of stuff. So it's kind of like, oh, that's like I could nitpick all that, especially like the Bravo team and this and that. But then I was like, well, it's not like they built any of that up for me to like care if it was put in there. They would have to change a lot of other stuff before all of it. Like there's just a lot of things I wanted, especially for the Bravo, because that's basically the main focus of the first game is why you're going up into the mountains and the mansion. So they kind of took all real motivation from going there.
Yeah, exactly. And the sending them in a helicopter opposed to sending them in like a SUV or patrol car after I don't know. Either way.
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there. So, I guess kind of doubling back on some of the main characters that we mentioned, like what did you think? I mean, we obviously we have our opinions about Leon, but what did you think about Chris? What did you think about Robbie's version of Chris?
So I've been a fan of Robbie for a while. I watched this really campy Netflix horror movie called The Babysitter.
Okay.
And they made a sequel, and he plays this dumb jock who's every scene he has to have his shirt off. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, he's just like nonchalant that he has no shirt on. And I always thought that was like comedic gold for his delivery and commitment to it. And they ended up making a sequel to it too for Netflix. And I was just like, when he was announced as Chris Redfield, I'm like, okay. I was like, he's in shape. I mean, obviously, big fan of his brother with that Heels wrestling shows going on, Arrow, everything else. And they were in a movie together too. That was like a sci-fi film, and I forgot what it was called. But I think from a Chris Redfield standpoint, like spot on, because he kind of had the personality where he's like not a veteran like cop or stars, but he's still like he's done it enough, and he kind of still has that whole like blind like allegiance to like Chief Irons and them. Be like, we got to get up there. Let's go up, like good boy, you know. And
Yeah.
I thought like he stole a lot of the scenes he was in just from the action standpoint and just the delivery. And I was like, but I was like, man, if they keep this franchise going forward, he's gonna have to bulk up a lot. I don't think his arms are too small to punch a boulder.
So there's a scene where they were talking about, okay, so Claire makes a comment about him having the hots for Jill, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a scene in the police station where someone mentions Jill having the hots for the big guy. And I was like, oh, okay. So, you know, Chris is the big guy, obviously. And then he came downstairs and I was like, oh, wow, he's really small for Chris Redfield in this movie. Like, who's the big guy? And then Wesker. Yeah, he was much bigger than Chris, which I thought was a good choice.
Yeah.
And
I think like it was a good choice for Wesker from like an appearance standpoint. I would have assumed Wesker would be a little bit older.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think maybe a little more methodical with the personality and more like cunning in this and that, where he came off across as like the dumb jock type.
Yep.
And I was
very much.
Why? Like, I feel like casting wise, good choices, but actual writing the characters, I feel like they didn't get a lot of the personalities like accurate. Like Chris was pretty accurate for Chris. And Jill was good. Irons was good. Birkin was good.
I want to double back on that one. I really liked Irons.
I always forget that actor's name because he was in Routed for Life and he was on Gotham. He's been at a lot of things. And when I saw him as Chief Irons, I was like, that's Chief Irons. Like, he is like so brash and he was just so entertaining. Yeah. I was like, I was rooting for him like the whole time. I was like, I know how this is probably going to end for him. But man, he is. And that's how you do comic relief. His character, not what they did with Leon.
Right. He was over the top too. Now, the way he talked to Leon was funny.
Yeah.
But, and then that whole exchange, as a matter of fact, him, he's like, Leon, what are you doing up here? Well, you said everybody. Yeah, everybody, except you. What if somebody needs a secretary? And he's like, yep. All right, cool. I'm gone. Yep. And then the way Leon's character, like, no-sold the way Irons was treating him and was just like going, that was the best exchange he had in the whole movie.
Oh yeah, no. And it makes sense for Irons, because Irons being the chief, like talking like that to a rookie. But it's like when you had everyone else verbally worse than Chief Irons was in that scene, and I'm like, this is like, when we get to spoilers, obviously there's a jail cell scene that's really good to drive home just how badly they did not care about Leon.
No, they didn't. So I'm sorry, I had to derail you. So Irons was good. What did you think about? Let's see. So we've named who's left. Richard. Okay, so they had Brad Chickenheart Vickers in the helicopter. He didn't really play a big role in it.
Yeah, I kind of when Vickers was there, I was like, I wonder how much they're actually going to let him like be in the film. Because we kind of know what happens, Right. And I was like, so it's kind of like one of those things like, oh, well, you know who the disposable characters are in this. But, I mean, so it's like one of those things where I'm like, I guess it's good casting. Right? It's not like he's a franchise leading man of the Resident Evil series. So I'm like, I was like, you could cast anybody as in that role.
Basically. And he did good. I mean, he did like he's supposed to do. He friggin' ran away.
He did a good job. Like, I was like, okay, this is entertaining. Like, he's doing a little bit more than I thought.
Yep. So I guess I don't think we're missing anybody else. So that's all the main cast. No. I think that's everybody.
Well, you could talk about Lisa Travers. Or does that go to the spoilers?
Well, see that's definitely spoilers, which I thought was an amazing addition. I don't love the way they did it, but I don't hate it either.
Yeah.
But the fact that they put her in there was just like, oh yes, like that's deep cut. That's like again, that's Resident Evil remake, you know, the actual remake, but still, like that was using Lisa Trevor. To me, that's a sign that you did your research.
Yeah,
Like that was really cool. So, well, you already mentioned kind of the set pieces and the scenery, and I just want to say they nailed that freaking police station. Like those rooms that looked. I mean, and then that aerial view they had of the front where Leon was propped up at the desk. That was awesome. Like with the giant fountain in the background.
Yeah,
that was so freaking cool.
I was just like waiting. I was like, oh, please tell me he solves a puzzle. Like just one puzzle. That's all I need. Just one puzzle.
Yeah, well, that guy definitely wasn't solving anything.
No.
So I guess overall, before we get into spoiler territory, they nailed the characters, they nailed the environments, and they nailed the lore. It's just the rest of it, you know. And now, obviously, we had to get into spoilers to discover why, but it was everything else that just kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We've given you roughly 29-ish minutes of you know, initial. If you're on the fence, you might want to go see it. Go see it. I mean, I think it's worth watching. I really do.
It definitely is. And not only just because if you're a fan of the games, this is like if you're a diehard of the fans and you can pick out the Easter eggs, it's kind of like a love letter to fans. But if you've never played Resident Evil, or anything like that, like it's gonna be a very muddled movie to sit through.
Yeah, it's definitely. I feel like you need to be like a little over 50%. Yeah. That's what this is for. This is for the fans who maybe have played every game or almost every game, but maybe not the people who have played them multiple times and read the books and the manga and, you know, listen to the Lorehound podcast where people break apart the timelines and stuff. Like this is, you know, it's just it's really, like you said, love letter to the fans. It really is. This people writing the love letter it's their first time. So yep. All right, time to get into full on spoiler territory. You had your chance if you're still listening. Here we go. Mark.
Yes.
What in the world were they thinking with Leon?
Like, I have no clue. Like, I don't even care about like the actor picked because I was like, hey, you know what? I think he did fine. Like appearance wise, hair, like when he put the freaking bolt vest on and this and that, I was like, oh, he looks the part. Good job. But then I legitimately have never seen such a beloved video game or any like character be portrayed in film and just completely shit on like that ever in my life.
Yes.
Like, it made I started to feel bad for not only just in the film Leon Kennedy, but just feeling bad in general for even the video game version of Leon Kennedy because he deserved better.
He does, dude. So he wakes up and he's drinking. And I'm like, okay, you know, they're gonna like maybe he's in my mind. It was like rookie cop, you know, he's out partying with the boys.
Yeah,
like you know, they're gonna do something where he kind of starts this whole night off, maybe hungover. Like I don't know,
yeah,
but no, he's a friggin' moron in this movie, and he starts drinking because he kind of make him out like he's a loser, like he's like, and then the whole. You shot your partner in basic training in the butt? Like, what?
And the thing is, too, is like they did the whole, dad had money to bail you out, now you're over here. I was like, what? Why does he have to be like, his dad's a big police chief somewhere and he covered for you and now you're in rat? It's like, there's so many other things. They could have been like, hey, you know, in his first year, maybe he got too aggressive on a call and, you know, or he was too much of like trying to be like a super cop. And they're like, hey, go to this small town where nothing really happens to kind of like tame your aggression. There's so many other things they could have did. Instead, it's like you shot a dude in the ass of basic training. So you're sent to Raccoon City where there's literally like 8 people left in the city and you just live in a hotel room and you let people eat your french fries. Because they just literally came over just eating his french fries. And I'm like, dude.
Yeah. like he was bullied the whole thing, but didn't do anything. Like he just is almost like, yeah, I deserve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I deserve it. What was so frustrating, on top of the fact that they just portrayed him like a total dingus. I can't even believe that somebody thought that was a good idea. The same people who put all the love and care into adding Lisa freaking Trevor into this movie thought it was a good idea to take realistically one of the two saviors of the Resident Evil universe and turn him into a bumbling idiot.
And okay, so usually in films when they do that, it's like there's supposed to be like a redemption arc. And
right.
The only thing they gave him that was any redeeming was the rocket launcher. But even then, that still was like somewhat comedic with their reaction and his expression. And I was like,
yes.
I expected him to like come out of nowhere and maybe he was gonna like, save them more in the first, Birkin fight and like come out being all bad at. Like I was like, gotta give him something. Or maybe he was gonna take down the liquor, which obviously didn't happen for him either.
Right.
And I'm just like, I think he had, out of everyone, the least amount of any like zombie kills.
Yeah, he was just a doofus. Like, just what it was like wait, all that screen time, and it's just for nothing. Like he did nothing of any value. Like Claire did everything.
Yep.
Which is again, that's kind of rewriting the way their relationship worked out. Like she constantly screamed out for Leon, like, yes, she was completely capable. And another thing too, they decided to change, which I don't understand why, is like in the books, especially, they lean into the fact that Chris helped teach Claire how to survive.
Yeah.
In this, Claire is this lock picking, which that we gotta get back to that too. That was something. But she's this lock picking, like almost like a jailbird. Like she ran away from their orphanage, which I thought them using the orphanage was really freaking cool, because that was something that got leaned like they really explored in the remake and not in the games really.
Yeah.
Like there's files about the orphanage, but like you never really do anything in the original games.
My downside is with the orphanage, from like, I was happy it was put in there because I was like, oh cool, we're really doing some world building. But it didn't, the way the flashbacks were handled, and it didn't, like, the flashbacks really didn't fully explain anything. They were like, one of the flashbacks literally was just a setup that that's where Claire and Chris were, like the first one, and that there's something watching them. And that was a really long flashback. That was like 15 minutes, and that's not how you open a film. But then obviously it really just was used to set up Lisa, Trevor, and Claire running away, but they never even fully showed or explained her running away and what she did for all those years. Because what was she, like 9 or 10 when she ran away? It's like, how do you run away when you're 10 and survive for that long?
Well, none of that, but like you got these two giant men and holding her arms, walking her to a room. You got William Birkin, kind of just eerily smiling. Like, is he a pedophile? Is he a scientist? I don't know.
And then lady.
Yeah, and then the old lady watching Golden Girls, which I thought that was pretty funny. But like, she just like ran away. Like they didn't even chase after her. I was like,
she bit one and shoved the other one, and he moved a foot.
Yeah,
and he didn't even fully fall over. And I was just like, he could have easily just like reached out and grabbed her, or he could have threw a bunk bed at her. He was those were like Bulgarian brutes. Yes. He was a Hungarian. He could have grabbed a bunk bed and threw it at her.
Yeah,
and they didn't really explain, and then they never really went over any of the experiments that were happening.
Right.
Either. So it was like, because as we know, spoilers for the games and like not the movie because it wasn't even freaking explained. Like Lisa Trevor's was experimented on, and that's where the G virus was extracted from, was from her.
Right.
So, and she became very unstable and volatile, and she was actually in the mansion walking around this and that, and there's all this, but like in this one, she was like kind of like Casper the Friendly Ghost. She was like, oh, it's my friend, and then she choked out a liquor, like choked it out, and I was like, what? Like, now mind you, I didn't. I'm torn because I didn't mind the CG for the liquor in this one. I kind of like what was done in the first Resident Evil film. The original one, Paul, I kind of like that liquor design a little bit more because it was a little more bulkier, a little more menacing looking. But this one was like more accurate in like the tone and like darkness to it. But I was just like, that was the scene where you could have gave Leon a chance to not be
a dingus.
Yeah. And the fact that they watched Irons get killed. Like they watched him.
Yeah.
You could have pop off a headshot real quick. They literally were just sitting there like, oh, what is he's being strangled. Like, they're just watching.
Yeah. Which I thought was a cool take on, the whole liquor scene from the second game.
Yeah.
But again, it was just like sometimes the liberties they took were just dumb. I mean, it almost put them in a position to where they were undoing the good that they were doing. Like, using Lisa Trevor was good. Having Lisa Trevor call Claire her friend, like you didn't need that.
I mean, I feel like easy fix would have been one of the case files that Claire was like, found was reading, would have shown Jessica, Lisa's mother, and maybe Claire kind of looked like her. So then Lisa's just like, oh, that looks like my mom.
That's why she helped. Yeah.
Like there's so many little tweaks they could have made that wouldn't have drastically changed like that overall like outcome of the film, but would have at least made things a little more, clear and cohesive. Because that was the main thing I was hung up on, was the whole Lisa stuff. Because I was just like, also the throwback with the key as well as symbols on them, and they used one key and left the ring there, and I was like, no, you got 4 other keys, like.
Yeah, you're going to a mansion. She just gave you the keys to the castle, literally.
And you leave
and they just left them in the wall. Like, oh, these don't matter. They just put that in there for the fans.
Oh yeah, no, that was another Easter egg, which I appreciate.
I do, but like, part of me was like, okay, you gave me the Easter egg, thank you, but the whole purpose of this and why it would be an Easter egg in the first place is because you're going to need that in the mansion that you're taking them to. And it was like, it was so hard to, talk about being a crybaby gamer. Like,
right.
I was trying so hard to appreciate it, but I'm like, wait. You can't just do that. You can't just like, you're messing up the reason why that's important. Like,
and it's not even crybaby gamer. Cause it's like even my fiance said, she was just like, those keys had all those symbols on them. Don't all the other ones mean something else? It's like, yes. She's like, what? Why didn't they? I'm like, don't listen. I was like, you would think that. And then I was like, maybe I'll start the hashtag release the Capcom cut.
Yeah. So Lisa Trevor's in the film. She's doing some, heroic stuff. They made Lisa a good guy. I mean, I absolutely adored the scene where they found the reel to reel and it had the Ashford twins on it.
Yeah. I was like,
they almost reenacted that opening video from Code Veronica almost 1-to-1. Like, so good.
And I feel like, even though Code Veronica is one of the best Resident Evil games,
I agree.
Not widely as played as other ones. So I feel like that was out of all the Easter eggs, that was such an obscure one that I wouldn't have thought would be put in a film.
Right.
And I was and I really appreciate it. That's when I was like, how is this movie turning out like this? Because by the time that happens, we're like an hour and 15 minutes. We're over halfway through the film. And I was like, how are we just now getting this stuff?
And then from there it goes. It was slow. It was a slow burn to get to that point.
Oh yeah.
And then from there it just goes up to. I mean, they turn up to 11. They just skate through the rest of the plot and the rest of the story so fast, and they were doing a good job. So I kind of want to get to Wesker a little bit because, like you said, they pretty much portrayed him like a dumb jock and a little bit of a romance going on. At least maybe a one-sided romance going on from Jill. And so everyone's in the mansion. They kind of split up and go their separate ways, which I thought was cool. They had some like dark sequence zombie fights. Those were really good.
That was so good with the lights out, and the only light you saw was from the flash, the muzzle of the gun.
Flash. Yeah,
I was like, that was so. Like I was watching and even after I was done watching the movie, I was like, that could be one of my favorite action like sequences of like any zombie film.
Yeah,
because it doesn't get done often, and you can almost sense that like even though the flash was cool, like if you watch his body, like every time it flashes, he was using the flash to see also.
Yeah.
So I was like, that is genius, and I was like, that's so good. And then walking through the hallway of the mansion to go up the stairs, it's like when it panned out, I was like, that's mansion. I was like, I like that mansion. That's my favorite.
They nailed that. And so they get to, and what's really cool is you've got Wesker following a Palm Pilot, which again, they nailed the 90s era.
Oh yeah.
So you got Wesker following the Palm Pilot, and he goes into the piano room, and he is looking at the notes on the Palm Pilot, and he plays the beginning to Moonlight Sonata, which again, just nailing the Resident Evil like lore and so iconic. And then he opens the secret room, and then a helicopter crashes. Here comes Brad crashing the helicopter through the mansion, which that's again, taking some liberties because that was supposed to happen to the
I just want to point out, he was on the ground in the helicopter when he got bit.
Right.
So he got bit, and his first decision was, let me bring the helicopter up into the air while I'm bleeding to death.
Yeah. And let me turn it around and go towards that mansion.
I was like, I'm not going to question it. It was cool sequence. But yeah, I was just like, oh man, that's definitely
that was
pushing it a bit.
So, but so that scene was actually supposed to happen to the police department, not the mansion. But I'll take it. And then Jill and Wesker have this moment where they kind of scream at each other for a second. She's like, you're basically betraying us somehow for money.
Yeah.
Like, and the thing is in the S.D. Perry novels, like he was garnering information, doing things for money. So that was not out of character. And then, but the way she reacted was just like, wait a second. Like, this is just a good cop, bad cop kind of moment. Like, all you got to do is say, no, we need to find our team. And then him run off to go find, information to make his money. It's like the way she goes when she sees Chris, she's like, Wesker betrayed us.
Yeah, like he shot the helicopter down or something.
Yeah.
Or he released a virus. Like,
yeah, it's like, well, no,
that's what they had. Like, they didn't build up the Wesker enough. Like, because we also know it wasn't just out of nowhere he gets a palm, but like this was a long-term thing,
right?
And he was kind of almost like a wolf in sheep's clothing amongst them, but they never built any of that up with the character. This is where we could, instead of all the, as much as I like the orphanage callback, instead of the orphanage flashbacks constantly, we should have got some Wesker flashbacks to him being, contacted and how it started. Like, I hate comparing, but that's one of the good things about the original first Resident Evil movie is they handled their flashbacks perfectly to kind of set the tone of where that character is now and what led to that. Whereas only Claire basically got flashbacks. So everyone else didn't get anything to kind of explain why they are the way they are right now or what they're doing. So like a lot of them didn't really, like, I think it's a shallow thing to be like, oh, well, it's just money. It's like, well, there's more to it, but that's how the movie wanted. And like you said, Jill overreacting, like, Wesker killed Bravo team in front of her. And I was just like, why? Like,
I agree. Definitely. That was weird because it was like, he didn't really do anything yet. I mean, it just, I don't know. It was very interesting, but I did like the fact that, he broke away and just like the first game, he broke away to go do some shady stuff. And I don't know that I love the way she, she figured it out or whatever, but either way, it happens. And then this is, to me, that is the moment where the whole thing just falls apart.
Yeah.
Because simultaneously you got Leon being disarmed by Ben, who in the game is Ada's boyfriend, but
yeah, make
whatever,
some crazy conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. And it's like
it's the water.
Yeah, which I thought was cool, having him be like a whistleblower and I don't know, man. It just started to fall apart so bad right there. And then freaking he grabs Leon, the cop, disarms him, and and he just okay, let me back up. First off, Leon falling asleep at the secretary's office.
This was my favorite scene for Leon, even though it was supposed to be.
Yeah, with the front door wide open. Okay, so the truck, the truck driver, he wrecks the tanker truck. It explodes. The tanker truck explodes in front of the police station with the door wide open. Leon doesn't wake up. He's asleep at the desk with headphones on. But then Chief Irons fires a random shot, just pulls his gun out and shoots in the police station. That makes Leon wake up and fall to the ground.
The worst part of that is the truck driver zombie on fire was walking into the police station, was 2 feet away from him. You don't feel the heat from that explosion. You don't even note it. And then and I was like, but for some odd reason, I still like that scene because watching the truck driver swerve, it's something about the 90s music he's listening to on the headphones the whole time playing in the background.
Absolutely.
And I was just like, it's one of those scenes where it's like, this is supposed to be a really crazy scene, but all those little layers added together, I'm holding back laughter, but it's in a good way where that was hilarious. And I love the scene for that, even though it could have been, Leon look like a dumbass.
Yes, it was, and it was like, oh my gosh, I was like, I can't believe they're doing this.
And he didn't know how to pump a shotgun. He didn't know how to freaking put a chamber in the shotgun.
Oh, I know, dude. I know.
Really? I was like, you don't even.
You passed the police academy, and you can't even freaking rack a shotgun,
right? And then the fact that he's like, oh, you do. She's like, and then once again we hint at the fact that I feel like she was a child criminal.
That's the way they make it out.
And I was like, yes, she's resourceful and a survivalist, but I was like, I don't get it. I don't I have no issue with the actress playing Claire. I think looked the part, the jacket, the motorcycle scene, that's not really cool. But man, it just, I don't know what was up with her. Her backstory just really bothered me.
Yes. Well, the thing is, well, that and they so she breaks into this is, again, we're jumping all over the place now, but she breaks into Chris's house with a knife through a deadbolt. Okay, and then he makes some comment about her being able to unlock, the lock or whatever. I'm like, but wait a second, Jill is the master of unlocking. Why wasn't Jill given the breaking? Why would you give that scene to Claire? Not that it really mattered, but it was just they nail so many things, and then they did that. I'm just scratching my head. Now I want to give the movie credit. I love the way that they were telling the story about how the water's been poisoned, and that's why the people were starting to turn.
Oh, I like that too. That was actually really good. And
Umbrella basically packed up and left. And then I love the little dialogue scene they had on there, where it was basically the only people left in Raccoon City are the ones who are too poor to leave. I was like, oh, that was cool.
Yeah, and I was like, that was good, but it's I don't like that the town was already evacuated, so to speak. Everyone left except for people who couldn't afford to leave, because it was well, how many is that? Because when we find out that Raccoon City is going to get basically destroyed, I'm like, well, how many people are realistically still living there that are zombies? Are all the zombies right in front of the police station right now?
Yeah, true.
Because I know it's nitpicking, but I kind of would have liked the idea of Leon and Claire trying to get to the police station. That was
I wanted to see that too.
And I the mansion was good, the set pieces, but it's I feel like the police station, other than the parking garage and then the one hallway they went down and the little dungeon area, it wasn't fully utilized. I feel like they were constantly going from set to set, and then it's let me digest and enjoy this area you just gave me. And for Welcome to Raccoon City, the movie didn't take place in the city area too much at all.
No, it did not. Which, again, I feel like the environments that they used, they nailed, but in the same respect, it's like you said, there were things that could have done better. I guess I'm being extremely nitpicky at this point, just because I'm a fan and I know so much about the lore and stuff. But I don't know, they really botched Leon so hard that like the more we talk, every scene that pops up with him, I'm like, ugh, why do they do that? Like,
Right?
like so.
I don't think it's nitpicking. I think honestly, it's like when did the first Resident Evil come out? Like
2002.
Yeah. So okay, it's been almost 20 years, and we still haven't gotten a cohesive, like, even not even just from a fan or Easter egg standpoint, just a cohesive story that wasn't outlandish and didn't have psychic powers and original character. Like, it's been the franchise itself has been around for long, like 25 years. It's like you're telling me we couldn't get just I would settle for a normal good movie that doesn't have too much fan service over a whole bunch of Easter eggs and just bad writing.
Yeah. It's weird, man.
You can't have both. You can't have all these Easter eggs and then also try and appeal to a general audience. Let's face it, you're not going to make your money and get a franchise if you just cater to the super fans.
Yeah, and I agree. But what's frustrating to me is that the movie starts to just fall apart so quickly. Like they nailed, again, I've said this so many times now, they nailed a lot of good things, but then you get to the scene where Wesker interrogates Birkin for the G virus, and at face value, that works. Even though that's not how it happened in the games, it was Hunk, which they showed Hunk right beforehand, which I didn't understand. It's like,
yeah, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I know him.
Yeah, but I was like, why would you send Wesker in to do that when you just showed Hunk? Okay. And then you have him getting this weird shootout to where Wesker gets wounded, which again is whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then leading into obviously Birkin has to be shot because he has to inject himself with the G virus, and he has to turn into the mutation. Like, that is a staple in Resident Evil, especially in the era that they're portraying in this movie. But then his halfway mutated, like, conversation with Chris about how he never loved him, he didn't care about him. And I was just like, you didn't do enough relationship building between those two. You had a flashback where Claire's traumatized by the guy. You had a conversation where Claire's wearing a football helmet in Chris's living room.
Yeah, and then he brings up how much Birkin's done for him in one sentence.
Right. And then you're like, oh, but the entire pivot, the Martha moment is we're supposed to care about him. It just it fell flat.
All they needed was like all those flashbacks they kept doing. Maybe have Chris in one of them where he's actually talking, because all we saw was Chris lying to Birkin for like, oh no, she sleepwalks ever since our parents died.
Right.
And it's just like, or he's like, you didn't see anything. She's like, no, I see it. He's like, shut up, you didn't see nothing. But even before that, not even the rest, didn't even really, other than seeing the vial of the G virus, this movie did nothing to explain the virus.
Outside of saying that the water was poisoned.
Yeah, but there's nothing, no development, no, hey, what are they working on? Oh, what is this virus supposed to do? Like, nothing. And I was like, how do you have Resident Evil with Umbrella Corp and this and that and not even build up that what the virus is or anything, or give it a full name throughout the film? Instead, it's just like none of them knew about the virus basically until he injected himself.
Yeah. And it was Ben, the reporter guy, the guy who disarmed the police officer. He was like, haven't you heard of the T virus? And everybody's like, no. That was it. He's just like,
yeah. And then they even tell how he figured it out. Like, that's what it's like. Oh, he's a reporter. But like, how did he find out the name of this? Like, and even the laboratory wise, it was like a big long tunnel and then a room. And I was like, that's a lab? They did testing there? Like, Like, that's very small. There's not even a waiting room. There's no beakers, no schematics. Like, I don't. But even then, it's like it's not, and that's not even like nitpicking details. That's like common. Like, you should want to like explain even the simplest things, even in a simple way. You could either be like, we were working on a virus to treat diseases, and we found a mutagen on it, and then be like, we lost track of our first test subject, Lisa, because like I still love the fact that Lisa was in there, and I was like, that could have been, she could have been the catalyst of the story.
Yep. They really, and I've always looked at Lisa's character as like, that is the catalyst. Like, that is where that they, she was the one that they harvested the virus from to begin with. So it was just like,
and that was what was that, Umbrella Chronicle? Was it Umbrella Chronicles 1 or 2 that was a part of?
Well, they put her in the remake. That was the first time I'd never seen her. And
she was in like the rail shooters for the Wii. She was in one of those too, and it was heavily talked about, like the experiments, her like mother and father, and then I'm trying to think, something about like her parents like abandoning her, something like that. But then she finds out like they're dead, and it was like Umbrella's fault. But like one of the Chronicle ones, I don't know if it's the first or second one. I do want to play those again. Those are solid games, but especially from a lore standpoint. But she was brought up in that a lot, because I vaguely remember, because I haven't fully finished the remake, but I do remember she was in one of the rail shooter ones.
Yeah, you should go through and replay the remake, because there's files in there about her in the remake. You see her; she plays a pretty large part. When you play like the OG RE1 and then you play the remake, there's a lot of additional content that they put in the remake, and she is a good chunk of it. But I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that they were testing the progenitor virus on her, and that is how they discovered the T or G virus. I can't remember which one she's associated with. I think it's the G virus, but still, like, it was just, man, again, that was so cool to have her in there and to have her play a big part in the story. But
and it was the Umbrella Chronicles, the first one. Because I just pulled it up. I was like, okay.
I tend to forget because like the Umbrella Chronicles tells like a little bit of 0 and 1 put together, and then the Dark Side Chronicles tells 2,
some of 3,
4.
A little bit of 3 is hinted at in the dark one.
Because they do some stuff with Krauser and Leon in there.
Yeah.
So, but
I only know because like, even though I played a lot of Resident Evils, like I always remember like the favorites, like 2,
right,
5, and I really enjoyed like the rail shooters, because I like rail shooters, and we didn't really get any of those really for Resident Evil. And so when those came out, I was like, I need these. Like, these are amazing.
Yeah, the cool thing is you can play those on PS Now. You can stream them straight to the PS4 or PS5.
Or PC.
That's right.
I have PlayStation Now on the PC.
There you go.
I did. Oh, by the way, sidebar, I did pick up the Resident Evil The Village for PS5 on Black Friday for $20, and that was... So now I have it on 3 platforms. Same.
So that's awesome. But so I guess we'll kind of like wind it down with this. I did want to touch on the end. So the Martha moment happens where, evil William Birkin starts to talk crap to Chris, and then they put him down, and then they get on the train. Now, again, a little revisionist history on this one. They rewrote. Well, first off, Leon was the one caring for Sherry in this movie, not Claire, which is different than the game.
Yeah,
which is fine. Whatever. That's not a big deal. But then you had at the end of the game, it's Leon, Claire, and Sherry on the train. And this one, it was Leon, Claire, Chris, Jill, and Sherry, which is, again, it's fine.
Yeah.
But the train gets attacked, and then you had mentioned it earlier. You have the mutated version of William Birkin, which looked amazing. They did such a good job.
The creature design and effects were so, like, even just a sidebar. Practical makeup and effects for the zombies.
Yes. Yes. It was good.
Yeah.
And so they nail so many things. It's so frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
But then they have Leon just come run out of the back of a train with a rocket launcher, and he shoots the rocket like point blank to everyone in the
too close range.
Yeah, and everybody just it's fine. And then Chris he looks back, he goes, "Really, a rocket launcher?"
He's like, "I found it in the cab." It's like, what?
Like,
and like I said, that could have been like at least a defining moment. But even then, there still had to add that element of like, you idiot, like comedic, like body language and tone, and like I don't understand sometimes, and it's just one of those things where it's like fully mutated Burkett looks so good. I was like, even seeing like the evolution of that mutation throughout the forums, like so good. And I was like, this is great. Like, but by the time we got to the train, I was just like, okay, we're like an hour and 40 minutes into the movie. I was like, okay. I was like, now they're on the train. It went by so quick. Like they only got a couple pistol rounds off on him, and then next thing you know, he blows up. And I was like, well, how much time do we have left? Like, I was like, if this is where, like, because this is almost the end of the game, and you know, this is the movie, it's like, it's not even 2 hours, and only the last 20 minutes has there been like that fast pace, like moving the story along finally, and then it ended.
Yeah, it did. It ends. The mansion implodes. There's, I guess, the whole city kind of implodes. They didn't do like a giant missile strike like they did in the games, but you know, that's fine. And then the movie's over, and if I don't know, man, like that realistically, they could have made Leon a doofus, and if they had like no actual dialogue with Birkin, if they would have just fought him, you know, and like not had the rocket launcher scene, that movie would have ended totally different for me. I would have walked away going, man, they did a really good job.
There's a way to like, I'm still hung up on the Leon Kennedy stuff, because there's a way to make you could be like the ignorant is bliss type of like idiot, where it's like, you're not dumb, you're just not aware of what's actually happening. So you're just like in your own head, like, oh, this is a weird situation we're in, whereas everyone's like, everything's going to hell, everything's on fire, and you're just like, well, we got to figure out why. It's like, you idiot, there's zombies. Be like, you sure? Like, there's that type, but then there's the whole, you're a rookie, so every time, like, literally a guy who's being detained steals your gun, you don't know how to rack a shotgun, you literally are zoning out listening to music when a tanker blows up in front of you, then you let people just steal your french fries. I can't get over that, because like, I have a thing about my food. If someone like literally comes over and starts taking french fries off my plate, like, one, they're either going to buy the food and then they can have the rest of it, or I'm going to have to fight them. Like, that's just weird. But it's like, it's one of those things where like all the little moments in this movie were so good. And I didn't even mind how quickly the ending was with the train and everything else, because I was like, well, you know, let's just take this Band-Aid off like really fast. Because the fact is, like, after all that happens, the movie just ends with them exiting. Yeah. And it's like Raccoon City destroyed, population 0, and they just walk out. And I'm like, but okay, like, so we never even get anything about Umbrella Corp, anything about the virus being created, nothing about Birkin's research, really nothing about what the hell Wesker was up to, and what was really going on with who he was working for. That I don't know. They just send me money. It's like, well, it's 1998. They can't just anonymously send you money like that. You know, Western Union asked for a name, like, and a wire transfer, it would say who sent it to you, like you would know. And no G virus, like, and I'm just like, there's so many things missing. And like I said, my family, she's not a Resident Evil fan. Like, she never played the games. She's watched the Paul W.S. Anderson movies, and that's it. And she was just like, she had no, like, even she was like, so why would she's like, I know from the other films the history of, but like, from just this film standpoint, why didn't they show the labs of them making the virus? Like, in the like she was comparing it to the first movie. She was like, why didn't they show them, with making the virus or like someone throwing the vial and it breaking and then there's an outbreak? And she's like, why was like where was the lab beneath the mansion? She's like, because they were on the second floor, weren't they, when they walked across to the? I was like, I don't know. And then she's like, and why was there an orphanage? I was like, that's a deep dive. Like, and she's like, so how did she escape? She just pushed the guy and ran. Like, she's like, aren't the doors locked? And I'm like, I was like, stop asking questions. Like, stop being logical. And this is from a general audience standpoint of view. So even I'm just like, if she's already seen the other films and I've explained enough to her for her to understand, what about the people who don't have those answers? What are they going to think when they go see this? They're going to be like, because there's a lot of people who really like it. They're like, oh, campy and cheesy fun. And I'm like, yeah, for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But there's an hour and 10 minutes of just, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of head scratching. I don't know. And that's what's so frustrating, because I was like, my wife went and saw it with me and she knows how much of a Resident Evil fan I am. And she was just like, so what'd you think? I was like, I don't know if I like that or not. And that's frustrating because I like it better than the 2002 Resident Evil movie. I've gotten to the point now where those Paul W.S. Anderson movies are like very hard to watch.
Oh, I also hate when the credits ran that he was executive producer.
Oh, I saw that.
I just saw that and I was like, that explains it.
He was like, whoa, we got to mess your ending up here, buddy.
I was like, I see what he's like, you got a good movie going on. It'd be a shame if someone put their wife in it.
Well, the fact that she wasn't Ada was good, because Ada loves that red dress, and I was like, oh no, they're gonna put Mila in there as Ada.
I was like, he's like, hey, I'm all the Resident. I made the Resident. Hey, you guys seen my most recent movie, Monster Hunter? It's like, go away, just go, never return. You're just a high budget ooey bowl.
It's just something, definitely something.
It was Ada. That's the other thing. The stinger was just Wesker in like not
glasses.
Dead.
Yeah,
in the glasses, and he's like, my eyes. That's a side effect. Puts on his glasses. He's like, ooh, I'm cool. Like his face, like you could see his face, like right when he put the glasses on, he's like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah. And I was just like, okay, cool. Wesker has glasses now. Like, what?
Yeah, and then the whole Ada thing is, I was like, okay, that's cool, but like that didn't seem like anything like a stinger that would set up another movie. It just seems like that was just a fan service. Like, hey, what's your name? Ada. It's like, oh, now you're gonna hear the people in the back be like, ooh, it's Ada Wong. I know who that is.
Yeah.
But it's like, I feel like a lot of stuff had no purpose other than just being an Easter egg.
And it definitely, that was what this movie was. It was just an Easter egg movie.
Because compared to like Marvel films, there's always all those Easter eggs, but the difference is there's still a story. Or DC, Snyder Cut, this, that, all those Easter eggs, but there's still a good story in characters. So it's like, and I don't know who the direct, like I looked it up before because I was going to write something about it, and I was like, I don't wanna. And I was like, apparently a lot of people are like, this director shouldn't like do this. Apparently this is like their first time dabbling in this genre or this style. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was just like, I have no desire to see this movie. I was like, why? He's like, because I watched the trailer. And he's like, it's something about the trailer just made it look like it was boring and that it was probably just going to be filled with Easter eggs. And he's like, and then I saw this weird thing, I guess, with like the director or the screenplay writer was like, one of the marketing things they were doing was like they were sitting down with gamers talking about the video games and how much they love Resident Evil video games. And he's like, that just tells me right off the bat the movie's going to suck. He's like, because they spent too much time probably playing the video game instead of writing a good script. And I was like, you're not wrong, because I saw the movie.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. And I guess this, like I said, we'll end it with this. Overall, it was enjoyable enough. Like I don't know if I don't know if I love it. I don't know if I like it, but it exists. It definitely, it's an Easter egg film like that. That's all I got, man.
For me, honestly, like I don't hate it. I mean, on paper, if you list all my gripes with it, and all, like, obviously the negatives will outweigh the positives, but at the same time, after all these, almost 20 years, finally getting to see, like, even one thing we talk about, Chris Redfield in the costume design, spot on. Like, all the costume design, and yes, they modified Jill a bit, but that looked good too. Like, all the costume designs and set pieces, but the costumes, like seeing Chris with the freaking gun and the little vest thingy with little green and brown and walking up the stairs, I was like, that it just threw me back to the cover of Resident Evil 1 on the PlayStation. And that alone was like, I never thought we'd actually see that accuracy in a movie. So it's like, regardless of my thoughts about overall, like, I don't know if I'd like rewatch it a lot. Like, I'll watch it again. I'll probably get the Blu-ray just for the collection. I'm just curious what made it to the cutting room floor. Yeah. Because, like I said, there was a lot of stuff that, like, plot holes that just were, it didn't make sense for them to be plot holes unless something was cut out, because you don't set up a whole, like, arc of her escaping and not talk about anything that happened in that 7 or 8 years. You don't have Birkins mention, the Chris, never loving. Like, you don't bring up all that stuff unless there was something else there in the film to, like, justify that. Unless it's just really crappy writing.
Well, I think just judging by the amount of profanity in the movie, that, like, the writers weren't the best.
Because that was a lot.
It was obnoxious.
Like, Leon constantly was.
Yeah, it's just like I don't understand. Like, I don't understand what makes someone think that, like, that's like good dialogue, like good writing. Like, I don't know. I just don't know people that just talk the way these characters did, because it was just F.
Irons was like, even though he swore, it kind of like made sense for his character, but it wasn't just like a swear. He would be talking and he'd be angry or frustrated. Whereas, like, if Leon was shocked, scared, something weird happens, it's just like, F. I'm like, does he have like a quota of how many, like, because you know how, like, extras, if you don't have X amount of lines, you get paid as an extra, not an actor. So I'm just wondering if they just never wanted to give him dialogue, so he had to swear X amount of times to get paid as an actor and not an extra. So they're like, well, we don't have any sentences for you to say. He's like, so can you just keep swearing over and over again so you can get a real paycheck?
F. Yeah,
it was bad. Like, that's like, too, like, that kind of, like, I'm immune to profanity. Profanity doesn't bother me, but it's like when it's just thrown in there over and over again and it's the same thing, it's just like, no.
To me, it's just a sign of bad writing. And, like, my thing is, and I talk about this on my shows a lot, is that, like, I don't care what is said if it's used in a good context or, like, it adds to the value. This didn't add to the value of anything. This was just stupid.
And I think also they just gave him less dialogue because they wanted to keep him being, like, the bumbling idiot. So that's why they're like, oh, we're just going to give him do it, because if we have him say full sentences with adjectives and verbs, people will be like, wait, he is smart.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. I was hoping we were going to get a franchise out of this, but with how little was talked about, like, I don't think we can get a second film that will be properly done or make any sense now.
Well, I mean, fortunately, the first one didn't make a lot of sense. So,
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just from the standpoint of, like, oh, there's gonna be a sequel. It's like, well, what do you do now? You can't have Leon go save the president's daughter because you made him a complete idiot.
Right. Like, and that was the thing that was so good about Leon. And so, he was the rookie cop, and they mentioned that so many times in the original and source material, but yet by the end of it, he was the savior of the day. Yeah. This guy is just as much of an idiot as he was when he started.
Yeah, it's like you got to have that redemption where it's like, oh, he's the rookie. You would have never thought this bumbling rookie would come through clutch in the end and save everybody and, like, be like, you did all that. You're as a rookie. It's like, but instead it's like, oh, you're a rookie. You're still dumb. Like, you're like, we're gonna have you be a mall security, and the next one it's gonna be like Dawn of the Dead, so he's just gonna be a mall security guard for like the next Resident Evil.
Yeah.
They should let Zack Snyder just do Resident Evil. He did so good with Dawn of the Dead.
Dude, see, I agree. So, well, Mark, man, I appreciate you coming on here and talking Resident Evil with me. Like, I don't know that my opinion really gives anyone any real clue as to how I feel, because I'm still putting it together. But dude, I'm glad we got to sit down and talk shop.
I know. I was like I said, I got to Darrell about this because like I don't know, and like even now, still I'm just like, maybe I need to watch it again and pick up on more, because you pick up on more things when you watch it. So maybe I got bored, because I was getting bored while I was watching it in the beginning, like because it was kind of slow and just a little like off pace for me. But I was like, oh, maybe I'll watch it again, and like maybe I'll pick up on some things, maybe like a little more nuances. Maybe I missed a sentence or two that might have actually, added on to the story. I mean, obviously my opinion on Leon's not going to change because he's a freaking idiot in that movie.
Yeah, he's an idiot.
But yeah, no, it was,
well, I'll tell you, anymore. I will say this, and then we'll end here. I went home and I was in such, like, I just couldn't figure out where my head was at. So I went home and put in the first movie, and it's terrible. Raccoon City is better than the first movie.
I will say it's better than all of them. Maybe not the second one. The second one was pretty cool.
The second one was pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, because that had some good Easter eggs in it too. But I will say, from a source material standpoint, this one was better. I think it didn't seem as like outlandish, because they had all like the stars people with their super machine guns like lighting into everything in the original first one. But this one is like, it seemed more claustrophobic, so to speak, because it wasn't those wide open. Whereas, another thing we had to talk about, the forest, I wanted, like, we only had one dog and one licker and 2 crows.
Yeah.
Like, when they were in the forest and the thing was up there, I'm like, oh, they're going to get chased by those dogs.
Yep.
I was like, those dogs are going to tear them up. And then I was like, no dogs? A crow on a tire? Like, I was like, ugh. But, like, it just felt more condensed, which I can appreciate, because it's easier to focus on more things, which is why I think we're able to focus on all the negative things, because there wasn't so much going on to distract us from the bad.
Yeah. I can see that.
I would say check it out, though. If you're on the fence, check it out for yourself and make your own opinion. I mean, obviously, when you're a big Resident Evil fan, it's hard to turn off the nitpicking, because that's why I'm with comic book movies, because I read a lot of comics, this and that. So it's really tough for me to turn that like switch off in my brain when I am actually like watching comic book movies. So for Resident Evil, it was tough to do. So like, I guess we're probably going to be a little bit harsh on it, but we are accurate with a lot of the statements.
Well, I will. Like I said, I'm just going to keep nitpicking. I'm glad it exists. Yeah. I will watch it again. I'll own it on Blu-ray for sure. I'll watch it a lot, and it may grow on me, but yeah, Leon is a bumbling idiot. That is for sure.
100% idiot.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for coming on here. Thanks to anyone who is checking this out. Thank you for listening. Let us know what you think, man. Write into the show, jump into the Loot Bros Facebook group, the Discord. But yeah, 2236 Loot Bros Podcast, Mark Lucio, Residentdarrell, we're out.
Not Metal